The scene opened on a battlefield, where a man clad in black knelt on the ground, gasping for breath, clearly exhausted. He was surrounded by several armed men, all brandishing swords. Blood trickled from his head and mouth. One of the men stepped forward and remarked with mocking admiration that no one could pay to witness such an extraordinary sight. He taunted the man in black, calling him a lone knight who had held his own against the fiercest warriors of the continent. The scene briefly cut to the corpses of those very warriors, littered across the battlefield. Their leader, a fearsome figure named Boris, praised the knight, exclaiming that he must indeed be the younger brother of him, a reference that immediately revealed the warrior's identity, Lord Sion Vert. Sion, still kneeling, looked up and addressed Boris by name, demanding to know who had ordered the attack. In response, Boris, grinning devilishly, revealed that the order had come from the Emperor himself. As he spoke, he withdrew a dagger wreathed in a sinister black mist. Sion, undeterred, released his own black mist. Boris shielded his face and recoiled, muttering in shock that the rumors were true. Sion was an assassin of the mist, an order known for its dark magic. He declared that he would report Sion as a heretical rebel who had been quashed. Sion warned him to try if he wished, though he doubted Boris would have any teeth left with which to speak afterward. Boris scoffed and informed him that escape was impossible. He had already cast a 9-star level magic barrier over the area. Sion thought frantically. He had to find a way out. He had to tell his brother. They needed to know who was behind all of this. Aloud, he declared that barrier or not, he would raze everything to the ground. At that moment, a commanding voice interrupted them. "Enough, Sion." Boris immediately bowed. A knight in golden armor stepped into view. Sion froze in disbelief. His heart sank. He remembered his father's words echoing in his mind. "Dedicate your life to upholding the honor of the family name, for your brother Eschel is the family's honor. His success is your success." Realization struck like a blade. His brother Eschel was the one behind it all. As Eschel approached, sword in hand, Sion dropped to his knees. He looked up at his brother, confused and broken. What does this mean, brother?" Eschel stared down at him with solemn eyes. He told Sion that he had performed his duties well, for the family name, the people, and for Eschel himself. He acknowledged the decades Sion had sacrificed. But now, he said, it was time for Sion to relinquish that burden. Sion, barely comprehending, asked if he had done something wrong. Eschel's demeanor shifted, anger rising in his voice. He accused Sion of deception, of hiding his monstrous nature. "That sinister fog," he spat. "You're no longer human, just a vile murderer. You've been lying to us all this time." Sion was stunned. A murderer? Heinous sins? He repeated the words to himself, his expression turning from confusion to rage. He recalled every campaign he'd fought for his brother. The feud over the imperial crown, the suppression of the demon army, the war to unify the continent. He had been Eschel's shadow, his sword, and his shield for 20 years. Now, Eschel would discard him like a used tool. With fury swelling, Sion punched the ground, cracking the earth beneath him. Blood dripped from his body, but he stood tall, dagger in hand, vowing to destroy Eschel, even at the cost of his own life. He unleashed his magical aura. One of the fiercest warriors shouted in disbelief, marveling at Sion's remaining power. Sion mocked his brother, calling him a coward who feared his own flesh and blood. He charged. Eschel blocked the first 2 strikes. Sion knew he only needed one hit, one clean blow to a vital point that couldn't heal. He appeared behind Eschel, dagger poised, only to be intercepted by a magical shield. Shocked, he saw Boris with an open spellbook, the source of the defense. Taking advantage of the moment, Eschel thrust his sword into Sion's stomach. Sion's dagger clattered to the ground. Eschel looked at his fallen brother and sighed. He had hoped to give Sion a peaceful farewell, but Sion had revealed his true nature. He admitted that he had never fully trusted him. Sion lay bleeding, devastated by his brother's words. Eschel turned away, ordered his men to leave, and Boris bowed in agreement. As the world faded, Sion whispered bitterly to himself, realizing the futility of his life. But then, with a final cry, he lunged toward Eschel with his dagger. Before he could strike, Eschel's magic sword flared, launching Sion backward. A girl's voice pierced the darkness. "Young lord, Lord Sion!" Sion jolted awake, gasping for breath, clutching his throat. A maid stood over him, scolding him for sleeping in. It was Emily. Shocked, Cyan called her name and asked what she was doing there. She blinked in confusion and asked what he was talking about. Had he been dreaming? Cyan looked around. This was his childhood room, exactly as he remembered it. Could he truly be back in the past? As he patted himself down in disbelief, Emily continued chiding him. You don't want to go to the sparring match, do you? Gather your courage and go! She stood with her hands on her hips, leaning toward him. Sparring match? Cyan echoed, still dazed. The scene shifted to the top of Castle Vert, the ancestral home of the Duke's family. Cyan looked around and confirmed his suspicions. He had truly returned to the past. It was March 1st, 985 SC, the day of a monthly sparring match held in the territory. He remembered this day vividly. He was 10 years old, 1 year away from entering the academy. His opponent was Crans Vert, his half-brother. Despite being the youngest of the 4 sons, Crans had been favored due to his mother's noble bloodline, the Duchess Margaret Argaeus. Cyan, born of unknown origins, was an illegitimate child, a shame to the household. His father had told him bluntly to stay out of the way, a comment that marked the beginning of his estrangement. Emily whispered for him to forfeit, but Cyan declined. He would win. Even she had no faith in him. When he drew his rapier, he felt how heavy it was. His young body struggled to wield it. Emily, worried, urged him to be careful. But Cyan knew this wasn't a dream, nor a vision of death. No magic he knew of could produce such a perfect illusion. He had truly returned to his 10-year-old self. Crans sneered at him, expressing surprise that Cyan had the courage to show up. Cyan, however, saw the fight differently. If he could change the past, he would. When their father gave the command to begin, Crans charged at him. But Cyan, with the experience of a seasoned warrior, found Krans's movements laughably slow. He stepped aside with ease, causing Crans to stumble. Crans shouted insults and lunged again, but Cyan disarmed him and kicked his leg, dropping him to the ground. Gasps echoed. The Duke was visibly shocked. Krans's mother screamed. Standing over his half-brother, Cyan considered ending the match, but it wasn't enough. He wanted to humiliate Crans, to put an end to his torment once and for all. He remembered all the suffering Crans had caused at home and later at the academy. This time, Cyan vowed he would live for himself. Crans suffered a crushing defeat. Cyan's performance impressed the Duke so much that he postponed his journey to speak with him. Cyan was escorted to his father's office by the Duke's personal knight, Jurkin. On the way, he encountered Krans's mother leaving the infirmary, seething with rage. Smiling, Cyan asked if Crans was all right. She lashed out, accusing Cyan of being brazen after attacking his own brother. Cyan coolly replied that it had been a sparring match and walked past her. Outraged, she hurled insults about his lowly birth and vulgar origins, declaring that he should be groveling in the streets. Cyan's smile faded, replaced by cold fury. He thought to himself, she crossed the line. Should I kill her? Even though the thought of killing her crossed his mind, Cyan held himself back. Instead, he thought, no, I know a much better way to make her miserable, and I'll do it nice and slowly. Turning to face her, he said calmly, you know I'll be entering the academy with Crans, right? The Duchess narrowed her eyes. What are you getting at? Cyan offered her a sinister smile. Aren't you worried? You do want Crans to graduate with all his limbs intact, don't you? Her face contorted with rage. You, vile boy, how dare you speak with that vulgar tongue, she shouted, raising her hand to strike him. But the knight accompanying Cyan stepped between them. With perfect politeness, yet an unmistakable firmness, he said, forgive me, my lady, but his grace is waiting. We can delay no further. Please excuse us. He looked her directly in the eyes as he spoke. The Duchess was left speechless, furious, and powerless. Cyan inwardly smirked, thinking how reassuring it was to be protected by a knight who would not even bend to the Duchess's authority. After all, the Duke's orders were absolute. When they reached the Duke's chambers, Cyan knocked on the door. A deep voice responded, come in. Cyan bowed respectfully and announced, Cyan, the youngest of the House of Vert, stands in your presence, your grace. It struck him that this was the first private conversation they had shared in 15 years. The Duke was facing the window, but turned and gestured for him to sit. As Cyan obeyed, he studied the man before him, the ruler of Vilius, western stronghold of the Wusif Empire. Many called him the guardian of the continent, the hero who halted the demon invasion with both powerful magic and a keen intellect. The man who had borne a burden no one asked him to until his death during the Demon King's assault. But Cyan remembered him differently, not as a hero, but as a man who chose to serve everyone but himself. In Cyan's eyes, that made him a fool. With a serious expression, hands clasped before him, the Duke addressed him. When Crans lunged at you, you dodged with precision. You read the path of his rapier and shifted your body just enough to avoid the strike. When did you learn swordsmanship? Cyan thought, of course nothing gets past him. Aloud, he replied, I didn't, father. I simply trained by myself every night. The Duke raised an eyebrow. The Cyan I know showed no aptitude for swordsmanship, nor any interest. How did you manage to hide such talent? Scratching the back of his head, Cyan replied, I didn't want to draw any attention to myself, I guess. The Duke chuckled dryly. For someone avoiding attention, you certainly outmaneuvered Crans with flair. But don't you think what you did afterward was excessive? Cyan recognized the question for what it was, an attempt to assess his character. I wanted to prove myself, he answered plainly. Prove yourself? What do you mean? Cyan looked him in the eyes and said, Though we are half-brothers, I believe I am superior to Crans, and I came to the conclusion that this is the true purpose of these sparring matches. The Duke laughed, clearly pleased. A sharp, straightforward answer. I'm overjoyed to see such talent in you, my boy. You're going to be a great help to Ashel someday. At the mention of that name, Cyan's heart froze. Memories of betrayal from his previous life surged through him. Nothing's changed, he thought bitterly. Father is still obsessed with Ashel. The Duke continued, Perhaps prize isn't quite the right word, but I'd like to reward you for winning the match. Tell me, what would you like? Cyan's expression changed. If that's how it is, he thought, then I'll destroy everything that scumbag Ashel sets out to do. Smiling coolly, he answered, I'd like. The scene shifted. Emily stared at him in shock. To go out to the front lines? Cyan nodded. That's what I told him, but nothing's been decided yet. Emily threw her hands up in disbelief. Have you gone bananas? Do you have any idea what it's like out there? Her imagination painted terrifying images, swarms of hideous demon beasts, chaos, and death. It's crawling with monsters. Cyan considered her words. Velius was indeed the westernmost region of the Wusif Empire, known commonly as the Front Lines. And within Velius was Lamea Valley, the site of a centuries-long war against demons. His father had strongly opposed the idea at first, but eventually relented, on one condition. Cyan must become qualified to go to Lamea within a month. Cyan still didn't know what exactly that qualification was, but he knew one thing. His first step was to build his body. Compared to his peers, he was still physically underdeveloped. Fortunately, he retained his battle instincts from his previous life, and to his surprise, a trace of magic still lingered in him. If he could train his body, he could use that magic more effectively. As he sat on his bed, Cyan looked down at his glowing hands. Determination burned in his eyes. He would begin training immediately. Suddenly, the door to Cyan's room burst open with a loud bang, and a sharp voice called out his name. A furious-looking young woman stormed in. Cyan immediately recognized her. It was his sister, Ellis. Without a moment's pause, she marched straight up to him, grabbed him by the collar, and began shaking him violently. Have you completely lost your marbles? Did you seriously tell Father you want to go to the front lines? She demanded. Half deaf from the shaking, Cyan groaned, Dear sis, could you maybe let go first? She dropped him unceremoniously to the floor, arms crossed as she glared down at him. You must think you're some kind of real warrior now, just because you beat Crans in a sparring match. I won't have it. Her voice echoed through the halls as she shouted in frustration. A few moments later, they stood facing each other on the rooftop, the wind tugging at their clothes and hair. Cyan looked across the space between them, unsure how things had escalated this far. Ellis narrowed her eyes and said, We begin the moment our swords are drawn. If you can endure my attacks for 3 minutes, I'll let you go to the front lines. Cyan sighed. Is this really necessary, sis? Never mind that, she replied curtly. Let me ask you just one question. Are you interested in carrying on the family name? Cyan blinked. So this is what this is about? He thought. Because I have absolutely zero interest in that. Ellis misread his silence and snapped, "So you do." Still exhausted from his earlier match with Kranz, Cyan reluctantly drew his sword and thought, "I just sparred earlier today? This is turning into quite the eventful day." Without further warning, Ellis charged at him. Cyan's eyes widened in shock. He barely had time to react, but somehow he managed to parry her strike. The clash of metal rang out as he deflected her longsword with his rapier. Ellis reeled back, stunned. Impossible. How did a 10-year-old block that? Cyan, equally stunned by the force of her attack, thought, "She's really not holding back, even against a brother 7 years younger?" The strength behind her strike had forced him back slightly. Ellis stared at him in disbelief. He parried my longsword with that thin rapier? Was it just a fluke? Then, with an almost irritated grin, she said, "You're better than I expected, dear Cyan." Cyan's heart sank. "Crap crude." Cautiously, he said, Ellis?" But she didn't let up. She resumed her aggressive assault with relentless intensity. Blades clashed repeatedly. At one point, she leapt high, aiming for his shoulder. Cyan blocked just in time, letting her sword slide off his and swiftly counterattacking. Ellis was caught off guard by his maneuver. Before his strike landed, Cyan twisted his wrist, redirecting his blade at the last second. Ellis gasped, but recovered quickly, deflecting his sword and stepping back. Cyan mirrored her movement. That was too close, he thought. If I hadn't twisted my sword, I could have killed her. Most Black Mist sword techniques are lethal, and considering how weak I am right now, fighting while trying not to kill her is nearly impossible. How much time is left? To compensate for his lack of muscle, Cyan had been channeling magic into his sword. But even that was nearing its limit. Suddenly, Ellis began chanting a spell, her voice rising above the wind. "O earth, O wind, come and become my sword." Cyan's eyes widened. She's using 6-star magic? Aqua Blade? Blue light surrounded her weapon, the blade glowing with an intense magical aura. She's trying to kill me? Cyan panicked. I thought this was just a test. Ellis, her eyes clouded over, muttered to herself in a trance-like state. I won't lose. I won't lose. Cyan felt a rush of fear. This is bad. She's lost it. If I block that, I'll be sent flying off the castle wall. He clenched his teeth. There's only one thing left I can count on. As Ellis prepared to release her spell, Cyan made his move. He charged straight at her, praying silently. Please, what's taking so long? Come on, Jurkin. At the last possible second, a figure burst onto the rooftop. Stop! Jurkin's voice boomed as he landed between them, blocking Ellis's strike with his own weapon and pulling Cyan to safety. The clash of energies released a blinding flash of light. Jurkin turned toward Ellis and said firmly, Lady Ellis, don't you think this is a bit excessive? Your opponent is none other than the young Lord Cyan. Still in Jurkin's arms, Cyan exhaled in relief. I thought you weren't coming for a second there. Ellis's expression shifted. Realization dawned on her face. Her sword dropped from her hand, and she rushed forward, wrapping Cyan in a hug. I'm so sorry, Cyan, she cried. I must have lost my senses for a moment. I just couldn't bear the thought of you going to the front lines. I was so determined to stop you. I completely forgot what I was doing. Cyan looked at her, heart softening. That's Ellis for you, he thought. She always gives everything she has, no matter what she does. Even among the most gifted students at the continent's elite academy, where mastery of swordsmanship, magic, and academia was the standard, Ellis stood out. She was an unmatched S-class elite in every subject, her skill rivaled only by her extraordinary beauty. People called her the Godchild. Having been raised with a sword in her hand, both Ellis and Ishel were once hailed as future guardians of the continent. But her promising life was cut short shortly after she joined the Order of Light. Cyan hugged his sister tightly, the emotions of their reunion crashing over him. In his heart, he thought, I missed you, Ellis. This time, I'll protect you. Still embracing Cyan, Ellis turned her gaze to Jurkin. But Sir Jurkin, she asked, aren't you my father's guardian knight? He just left on a journey. Jurkin bowed his head respectfully and explained, I am following his grace's orders, my lady. I was instructed to protect Lord Cyan for the time being. His grace wished it to be done in secret, so I did not inform him. Cyan, drowsy in Ellis's arms, recalled how he had sensed Jurkin's presence the moment he left his father's office. He wondered if his father would have remained hidden had Cyan done a better job pretending not to notice. But why would Father assign Jurkin to protect me in secret? He wondered. Before he could think more, sleep overtook him. Ellis smiled gently. He's still just a child, after all. The next day, Ellis returned to the academy. She had only come to visit their father before her graduation. Back in his room, Cyan struggled through a set of push-ups, barely managing 10 before collapsing in frustration. For 2 weeks, he had devoted himself to building his strength. But the results were underwhelming. Tears welled in his eyes as he remembered the strong physique he once had. I need another plan. Fast, he thought. Just then, Emily entered, holding a small package. My lord, she said, pinching her nose with one hand and holding a bottle in the other. A package from Lady Ellis. But what is this? It smells awful. Cyan's eyes lit up. It's here. He recognized it instantly. Hellhound's blood. He had asked Ellis to acquire it, a rare item found only in the treacherous Lamea Valley. Though rumors claimed it could be found on the black market, few believed it. The blood of demonic beasts was considered poisonous, not just for its stench, but the burning sensation it caused upon consumption. Still, Cyan knew better. He had seen it work with his own eyes in his previous life. It permanently enhanced both magical and physical abilities. Emily looked horrified. My lord, are you really going to drink that? Cyan gave her a nervous smile. Yes, I am. After all, he thought, I'm the only one who ever managed to stomach her cooking. I still remember her first dish, mushroom soup. My heart nearly stopped after one spoonful. Compared to that, Hellhound's blood is... He downed the bottle in one gulp. Delicious, he shouted as his eyes gleamed bright red. He turned to Emily. Emily. Yes, my lord. I'm going for a little walk. Cyan made his way outside, eyes fixed on the distant silhouette of the castle. It's been so long since I stood here, he thought. I've waited 2 weeks for this moment when Jurkin leaves to make his routine report. I used to come here whenever I wanted to be alone. He recalled the day when Ashel had received a divine revelation from Lumendel, the god of light. It had spoken of a hidden shrine buried deep in the backwoods of Velius. They hadn't believed it at first, but eventually found a spot dense with mana. Of course, in this life, that revelation hadn't yet occurred. Which means, Cyan thought with a sly grin, only I know where it is. Charging his hand with mana, he struck the ground. Cracks spread outward, revealing a staircase beneath the earth. He descended. Achel, he mused, not even in your wildest dreams could you imagine what I'm about to do. It looked different from before. 300 years ago, before the War of Gods and Demons, before history was erased, this had been a shrine to Lumendel himself, hidden beneath their own lands all along. At the base of the stairs, Cyan spotted a glowing sword hovering above the altar. There it is, he whispered, the master of this shrine. His thoughts drifted to history. August 12th, 999 SC, the day humanity finally drove the demon army from Velius. The humans had been overpowered until they uncovered ancient relics, the weapons of the gods. Among them was Duran Dark, a holy sword blessed by Lumendel. Ashel would one day wield that sword and use it to kill Cyan. He reached for the sword, but as expected, nothing happened. Annoyed, he kicked it. Great, now I'm just in a bad mood, he muttered, walking past it. Beyond the altar, where light faded, he saw an unusual shadow, shaped like the sword but glowing with dark red mana. There you are, he said. It could easily be mistaken for the sword's shadow. But that wasn't possible. Where there is light, there must also be darkness. He knelt, pressing his mana-charged hands against the ground. Another hidden staircase appeared, leading to a sealed door. He opened it and entered. A familiar shape greeted him, a sword bathed in red aura. My magic sword. Karam, Cyan whispered, eyes glowing red. He grasped the hilt, swinging it through the air. Still asleep, are we? Laughing to himself, he added, I just love this feeling. I can't wait to slice something with it. Suddenly, a voice echoed through the chamber, dark, female, amused. You're quite the daring boy, aren't you? Do you even know what it means to awaken me? Cyan shrugged, unfazed. Not really. Maybe this sword is mine now? The shadow snarled. Fool, you've awakened a magic sword. Now it's too late for regrets. Your body is mine. She lunged at him, but Cyan caught her by the throat. Her form materialized, revealing a woman's face twisted in disbelief. Who are you? She demanded. How can you touch me? I told you, Cyan said coldly. You belong to me. She screeched and slashed at him with her claws, but he dodged easily. Retreating, she eyed him warily. Who are you? She asked. Could you be the successor? Dark red mana surrounded Cyan's body as she trembled. Why? Why do I feel Air's energy on you? That's right, Cyan said, eyes blazing. I'm Air's successor. Now kneel, for your master has returned, Magic Sword Kiram. You're just a snot-nosed boy, she roared. I won't accept it, she charged, but Cyan blocked her blows with ease. He smiled. Looks like words aren't going to cut it, he said. A magic sword's ultimate goal is to consume its wielder, but I have no intention of losing. He raised his sword. Sword manipulation. In a flash, Cyan struck 5 times. She collapsed, defeated. Cyan's eyes narrowed as he faced the spirit of the dark sword. His tone was calm but firm. I'm only going to say this once, he said. I suggest you accept me as your master, before I'm forced to use any more strength. The sword spirit snarled. You little, how do you know that incantation? Without responding, Cyan activated sword manipulation once more, striking the spirit 5 more times in rapid succession. Dust and energy swirled as her form crashed into the ground, her upper body buried halfway into the stone floor. Breathing heavily, the spirit shouted, all right, I submit, you little. Cyan stepped back, satisfied. Inwardly, he thought, I've gotten what I came here for. I should probably head back now. I've been away too long. He emerged from the underground shrine, carrying the black sword in hand. As the blade caught the sunlight for the first time in ages, the sword's spirit seemed to breathe it in. I can't remember the last time I breathed outside air, she said, her tone almost giddy. It's exhilarating. Then she asked, So, Master, what's your name? Cyan answered without hesitation. Cyan Vert. The sword paused, then scoffed. You're telling me Air really chose a kid like you? Cyan replied, Yeah, in my previous life. Confused, the sword asked, Previous life? What the heck is that supposed to mean? I died once before, Cyan said simply. The sword spirit stared at him, trying to make sense of what she was hearing. Just who is this kid? She thought. Cyan approached the pedestal where the holy sword still hovered. Looks like this one's still asleep, he muttered. The dark sword responded. Its master probably won't show up for another 20 years. That so? Cyan mused. Sounds like you know something I don't. Without warning, he swung Kiram, the dark sword, and sliced the holy sword's pommel clean off. The sacred blade dropped, its tip embedding into the earth. Cyan caught the pommel midair, examining it with a wicked grin. The dark sword gasped. What do you plan to do with that? Still smiling, Cyan replied. Not sure yet, but I bet it's going to make things very interesting later. On a different day, a luxurious carriage emerged from the gates of Castle Vert, rolling across the open field. It came to a halt before a gathering of knights. From it stepped Cyan, dressed formally and bearing the calm, resolved expression of someone far older than his years. He looked toward his father, who stood surrounded by Jurkin and the other knights. It's already the promised day, Cyan thought. Time sure flew by. He bowed deeply. Cyan, the youngest of the House of Vert, stands in your presence, your grace. His father eyed him solemnly. I shall ask you one last time. Are you still determined to go to the front lines? If you choose to withdraw now, I will not hold it against you. Cyan's eyes sparkled with conviction. Yes, father, for my heart is already at the front lines. His father nodded, then turned to Jurkin. Release it. Jurkin bowed. Yes, your grace. With scroll in hand, Jurkin walked to the center of a nearby field. Cyan watched curiously. A magical scroll? Is he going to summon something? Jurkin threw the scroll into the air. Magic flared, and from the energy, a hellhound emerged, snarling, massive, and brimming with fury. The beast roared, locking eyes with Cyan. Cyan dropped into a battle stance. A hellhound? A low-level demon beast from Lamea Valley. Looks like father and the knights went through quite a bit of trouble for this test. He noticed the tension among the knights. All of them had drawn their swords and were poised to intervene. His father's voice rang out, loud and commanding. A warrior's words carry responsibility. If you are truly resolute about going to the front lines, then prove it through this trial. Jurkin, watching silently, thought to himself, a trial. 3 days earlier, Cyan had approached Jurkin with a determined expression. You want to spar with me? Jurkin asked, surprised. Cyan nodded. Only 3 days remain until the date set by my father. I can't keep practicing by swinging at the air, can I? I need real experience. Can you help me? Jurkin hesitated. If you're looking to spar, wouldn't someone closer to your age be a better match? Like Lord Crans? Cyan chuckled. I don't know why, but Crans keeps avoiding me. At that moment, the scene shifted to Crans running away in a panic, shouting, "Stay away from me!" Jurkin sighed inwardly. This puts me in quite a tough position. Then he said aloud, "Well, if you insist, my lord. However, I shall only use my scabbard. I'll focus on defense, so please attack as much as you wish." Drawing his sword, Cyan thanked him. "One more request. Don't tell father a single word about what happens in our spar. That's an order." Jurkin blinked, confused, but nodded. The moment Jurkin raised his scabbard, Cyan lunged. Jurkin blocked the strike, but the sheer weight of the blow shocked him. That was a heavy hit, he thought. Impossible. How is a 10-year-old able to deliver such blows? And he's incredibly fast. Cyan suddenly vanished from Jurkin's sight and appeared above him, launching 5 rapid strikes. Jurkin managed to block them all, barely. As Cyan landed, he wasted no time, launching into a fierce overhead slash. Jurkin blocked again, but the force rattled him. Cyan flipped backward and took a deep breath. "Looks like I still can't beat you. Yet." Then he smiled and lowered his blade. "Good work, Jurkin. Thank you for your help." Jurkin clapped his hands, his expression filled with awe. "Superb work, my lord," he said, astonished. When did the once feeble Lord Cyan become so skilled, he wondered. Nearby, Cyan gave a calm, confident smile. Back in the present, Jurkin stood among the knights watching the trial and thought to himself, based on what I felt that day, I'm confident Lord Cyan can now overcome any trial. The hellhound suddenly lunged forward, baring its fangs. Cyan narrowed his eyes. Here it comes! As the beast opened its jaws, Cyan moved like lightning, his blade slicing clean through. The hellhound collapsed to the ground. I'm still too weak to face demon beasts head-on, Cyan thought. I have to end this fast. I'll finish it with this blow. He dashed forward, slashing across the hellhound's neck. Then, leaping above the beast's massive frame, he hurled his sword down. The blade drove straight into the skull, pinning the beast to the earth with finality. The watching knights stood in stunned silence. Even Jurkin blinked, dumbfounded. Meanwhile, Duke Vert grinned with approval. Cyan stood atop the corpse, staring down. What a waste. That's several bottles worth of blood, he thought. But I don't want to risk everyone thinking I'm a weirdo, do I? The Duke began clapping. Magnificent, Cyan. You've proven yourself worthy of going to the front lines. Cyan bowed deeply. Thank you, Father. From the shadow of the sword, Karam's spirit growled with indignation. Master, do you take me for a kitchen knife or something? Cyan looked at the blade. No, you're a magic sword. Why? Then why didn't you use me? The shadow barked. I need blood for power. As Karam's spirit tried to lick the hellhound's blood from the ground, it whined. Please, just one sip. Holding the sword tightly, Cyan replied, You don't need to worry. I'll be using you a whole lot soon. Just you wait. You should have woken me up then. The sword huffed.